Okay. Hey everyone, this is Sarah Catherine, author of the blog Sincerely SC. Last week I had a Skype call with indie pop musician Drew Anton to discuss the upcoming release of his latest album, Fall from Grace. Now that the album has been released, Drew is back and we're delving deeper into the story behind the album and specific songs, as well as talking about the visual elements of the project. Drew, thanks for joining me again.
Thanks for having me again. I'm so excited to talk about this stuff now.
Yeah, me too. How does it feel now that the album's out there in the world? How are you taking it all in?
Oh my gosh. So it's like really crazy. We've talked a little bit about this past weekend, but it's so surreal because, like I mentioned a few times in our conversation, I've been working on this for over a year now. So the fact that it's finally out, it doesn't really feel completely real. I keep thinking that I still have stuff to do, like I still have to finish recording it and all of this stuff. Just because it's been the biggest project I've ever worked on, and I've invested so much time and energy into it. But it feels that much more rewarding now that it actually is out there. And I'm super thankful for the response I've been getting so far, which is another reason why it feels so surreal because it really touches me that people are taking the time out of their busy schedules. And I mean, especially with everything going on now with the pandemic, to take the time to listen to my music, like it just feels really special. And I'm so thankful for everyone that's been listening to it and sharing it and even messaging me and saying such kind things about it. So I'm just really happy.
Yeah, that's great. It is so good. And I must feel like really good to finally have it, out there in the world and
Yes.
everyone can listen to it.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah. So, now that listeners have had a chance to listen to all the songs, we can go into more detail about some of them,
Yes, I'm
which
so
is so
excited.
exciting. Yay! So now that it's out there, I wanted to ask, I know I asked this last week about what your favorite songs were, and now that it's been like, a few days since it's been out, do you have like new favorite songs or is it still kind of like the same?
So it's kind of still the same, but the cool thing is now people are telling me their favorite songs from the album, which
Mm.
I was pretty much interested about throughout the recording process. It popped in my head a few times, like, oh, I wonder which songs people are gonna like the most and whatnot. And it's funny because they've all kind of been the same songs that people have been saying to me. And it's funny because some of them are the same ones I like a lot. Like a lot of people have been saying that they really like I Think I'm in Love, which is definitely one of my favorites. A lot of people have been saying they really like Yours Tomorrow, Yours to Keep. Um, and then this one actually really surprised me. A lot of people have said that they really, really, really like um, Love Don't Always Have to Work Like That, featuring my amazing friend Rebecca Perry. And it's so exciting because that song was pretty challenging to record. It was one of the first songs I've ever really done that was upbeat, up tempo, and just very loud and bright and vibrant. And sometimes I have a habit of writing songs in a key that's not necessarily the easiest to sing for myself. I don't really know why I do that. It kind of just happens when I'm writing. Like I just come up with certain chords and I just end up sticking to that. But I do remember when I was recording that song, I had to change the key a few times just because, man, let me tell you, I was having to go high. And I'm like this does not really sound okay. So it changed a lot and I struggled a little with my confidence on that song. So it just feels that much more relieving that people really like that song, so it's cool.
Yeah, I love all those songs. Yours Tomorrow, Yours to Keep, and I Think I'm in Love. Those are like
Yeah.
also, they were on my list of favorites too.
Oh, thank you.
So, I wanted to ask you about I Don't Care, which is another one of my favorite songs on the album. A super upbeat and defiant song. So, you mentioned last week that it's different from your usual sound, and I think that definitely comes across. So, what was the process like behind writing that song?
Oh my gosh, let me think. Sometimes I really have to think for a second about specific songs because I think I've mentioned this before, but if I didn't, during the writing process and the recording process, I wasn't necessarily working on one song at a time. I would kind of do bits and pieces of things and just switch around, depending on the day. So sometimes I have to like think about like when I was doing a specific song. But I think for I Don't Care, um, that one was inspired by also, I would say this one, along with um, Head Over Heels for You, both were in a way a continuation of Perfect Stranger. So I kind of already had those lingering thoughts and feelings. Um, and I kind of knew what I wanted to say to close out that chapter completely. So I think that's how I Don't Care came about. But this time, instead of just completely taking the perspective of sadness, I, I realized a lot of frustration and anger based on the events from that EP and just stuff in between. And I really wanted to express that this time, which was really scary because I'm not an angry person and I've never expressed anger musically before. I'm usually pretty quiet and reserved. Um, but I wanted to be as authentic as I could be on this album. I mean, I always strive to do that in general, but I really, really, really wanted to express every single angle of my thoughts and feelings this time without holding back. Um, so that's how that song came about, and it just felt really good to build this song around that kind of energy because it was such a strong feeling inside of me. Like I said, I've been harboring it for a while now. So it just felt like such a release to write this song and also build the arrangement around it. That was so, like you said, upbeat and defiant. And it was just really cool during the whole recording process to hear how it was building itself and at the end how it turned out. Like I was just so happy with how it came out, and ultimately, like I said, it was just such a release of energy. um, and it changed from bad energy at first to now good energy because I was able to channel those feelings into something literally productive. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that must have been really cathartic.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I've noticed that there are some religious undertones and symbolism in the album. Like you mentioned last week, the term fall from grace is a religious reference, referencing an angel that has fallen from heaven. And in I Don't Care, I noticed you say the lyric, I carried this cross till I ripped you from my heart.
Mhm.
And then I noticed that in your photo and lyric booklet, the image for I Don't Care is of you holding a necklace with a cross on it.
Yep.
So I'm curious, can you go into the symbolism of that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So when I was writing that song, I did have the religious undertones in thought. Um, and when I wrote that pre-chorus, I really liked that whole idea of metaphorically just bearing this weight, this heavy weight like a cross, almost like, I've been crucified this whole time. Like I've just been having this weight on my back and I was headed towards something really dark, um, until I finally, like I said, just ripped this person from my heart. Um, Kind of like we both got crucified in a way, like um, based on the situation, like it just had to end. Um, so then I got the idea when I was thinking of the photo shoot to play on that symbolism visually. So then I actually have a mock-up booklet here for the
Ooh,
album, and
exciting.
I'll pull up the picture real quick. Um, let's see. So we have I Don't Care, and this is the picture you were referencing, and
Hmm.
I am holding the cross necklace. And it was just a really cool dramatic moment for me. I wanted to appear like I was pretty much at my wit's end. I laid down, kind of stretched out on the beach, with my wet, crazy hair, and it was like I just crawled out of the ocean. And I just wanted to portray that I was exhausted because this song is full of all of that energy, and I was just exhausted, you know?
Mhm.
So I thought it would be cool and simple, but also really impactful to have that image of me showing that exhaustion and energy with the cross dangling. Like I said, I was really just at my wit's end. So that's how that came about.
Nice. That's definitely like really powerful imagery and symbolism. And I think it's something that probably all of us have related to at some point, like that feeling of being at your wit's end. And that definitely comes across in like the energy of I don't care, but like in an upbeat way. And that's what I love about that song. It's like so much fun. So the haunting, you make it so easy, and then the clap back head over heels for you, also really stood out to me because usually those kinds of titles make you think of love songs, but these songs were actually the opposite of love songs. So was that intentional?
Yes, 100%. It was a lot of fun. I don't exactly remember um, how I came up with those, or came up with that idea basically. I mean, I definitely remember why I did that for Head Over Heels for You because I was directly inspired by something we can talk about. But for You Make It So Easy, I don't necessarily remember out of those two which one I wrote first, but whichever one I did write first, I think at that point that's when I kind of thought, hey, it could be fun if these few songs of this theme of sadness and anger all kind of tricked people a little bit because the album mostly is about love, and I wanted to definitely connect all of the songs in one way or another. So I thought I could at least connect them all for sure by the way the titles sounded. So I thought it would be also fun to kind of play on people's expectations of what a song would sound like. I really love that whole mental game of it that you really don't know what something's going to sound like, but also you can judge a book by its cover. So it kind of worked the same way with these song titles. um, I definitely wanted people to have expectations and think that they would come out a certain way, but then just completely be surprised by a plot twist. So yeah, that definitely happened with both of those songs. Um I actually think I wrote Head Over Heels for You first. And then I really liked that whole idea of satire, and kind of, I mean, I guess I could go into those two songs a little bit,
Yeah, go
but
ahead, go for it.
yeah, let me just explain it because I'm sure some people are wondering who have listened to it. Um, so for Head Over Heels for You, the song opens up with those kind of weird robotic voices saying, um, I literally can't remember like the exact words right now, but it's along the lines of, um, basically, I heard your songs about me and they sound like you wanted me more than a friend. Um, and that was directly inspired from a conversation I had with someone over text. And what I did to get those robotic voices was I copied and pasted the exact words from that text and I put them into Google Translate. And you know how she reads them back to you?
Hmm.
So then I took that audio and I put it into the song, and then I obviously like processed it a little bit to have those different pitches and the way it kind of like slows up and down and stuff. So that's what I did for that, and that was the initial idea. That was how I started the song when I was writing it, and then from there it just completely took off. Um, and the song is exactly about what I wrote about. Like that's literally what happened and what inspired that song. I'm obviously not going to go into personal detail about it, but everything that I wrote about in that song happened and was said, pretty much how I wrote it. So I really used that song um, to really just close out that part of my feelings. And again, in relation to Perfect Stranger, I just used that song to completely just close the book on that. Like, it was just, and that song was a lot of fun because besides the title, Tricking People, musically, instrumentally, it's very light and ambient. Like, it doesn't sound like an angry or sad song. So it was also fun to play on that too, because I've heard songs like that where the lyrics can be dark, but instrumentally it sounds very light and positive. So in this way, I kind of wanted to try the same thing. So it turned out kind of like 80s ambient um, music. I used a lot of synths and stuff. Like, it was really cool to make, and it sounds really pretty, I think. Um, and I really wanted to express that satire. And I think for people who hear it, especially the bridge of that song, I kind of break the seriousness a little bit, but also come back to it. And it was just really cool. And actually, I was very lucky to have Matt Billy play guitar on that song, who's so exceptionally talented at guitar. So that was a real honor for me to have him on that track too. Um, and then for You Make It So Easy, kind of the same idea, but that one I actually made sound dark too, instrumentally. So it was more of just tricking people with the title for that one. But that's the longest song on the album. And I kind of had the idea to split it into two songs in a way, because at some point, a little more than halfway through, you kind of notice it shifts into a different song almost. Instrumentally, it's similar, but you definitely feel that shift. Um, and I got that idea from bands like Coldplay, and I've seen on other albums too, some artists have a hidden song. So either it'll outright say it in the title, like it'll have a title and then a slash and then another title, or it'll just be like one title like mine, but the song will be longer than all of the rest. And sometimes they refer to that as a hidden song. So that's what I had in mind for You Make It So Easy. So that's why that one's so long, and it kind of has that shift. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun to express those similar frustrations and just sadness and bitterness into those songs. So yeah.
I definitely, it's great that you said that about the hidden song because I noticed that when listening to it that there was a shift, but I never
Yeah.
noticed when it happened. I like
Mhm.
it's just by the end of the song, my brain is like, wait, why does this feel different than when the song started? But it's the same
Yeah.
song, but I never like consciously noticed the shift. So now that I know
Yeah.
that, I'm gonna go back and pay attention for the shift. And then Head Over Heels for You, that was just like I loved how it's so like you said, I was definitely tricked by it when I first saw the track list. I was like, oh, it's going to be a love song. And then if you kind of listen to the way it's so upbeat, you would think it's a love song, except for what you had with the robotic voice at the beginning,
Hmm.
which I also loved, by the way. That was such a fun way to start the song.
Thank
And the
you.
bridge is great too. And that electric guitar at the end definitely has that like 80s feel that you said. And I loved it. Like, I love that guitar.
Thank
So
you.
they're great songs. Shifting to the second half of your album, um, you kind of mentioned this a little bit last week that the first half of your album is mostly about heartbreak, while after the interlude, the album shifts to love. And I thought the stark contrast between the beginning and the end of the album was very interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about the songs in the second half? It's like tracks 8 through 14.
Yeah, definitely. Um, the album, like I mentioned last time, originally started with Thought of You, which is a love song. So I definitely knew that I didn't know at the time how much of an album I would have or how many songs I would have, really. Um, But after I wrote that song, I was like, hey, I've never really been able to write a love song before, and I really, really liked how Thought of You came out. So I wanted to try to keep playing off of that theme of love and see how many songs I could write. Um, and I was really inspired by certain people and just things that were coming to mind where I was having a shift of perspective after feeling just sad and that I was dwelling in this kind of pain for a while. I really started to open back up to love and life again. So I wanted to start writing about that more because I mean, as you've heard, I've mostly written songs that were sad and pretty dark before. So I really was excited to start this new perspective inside of my music that could be about love, which I think people also would really want to resonate and connect with. Um, so I ended up writing, like you said, 8 through 17 are pretty much all about love in one way or another. Um, and I really like how they came out. Like, I was really afraid that it would feel forced if I tried to write about love, because that's how it's always been in the past when I've tried. But I was so inspired, and I was actually feeling those things that I talk about in the songs. So it was actually really easy for me to write them, which was a really cool feeling. So that's how those songs came about. And I love the contrast, like you said, between the first half and the second half. And I was just so excited for people to hear the second half because, like I said, I've never sang about love songs, and that's actually the first line of the song Love So. I never used to sing about love. So I was so excited for people to hear the second half of the album.
It's amazing. And you definitely did not come across forced at all. Like you can feel the genuine emotion and truth behind all of those songs. It definitely comes across.
Thanks.
So let's talk about the title track, Fall from Grace. It's, I would say it's almost heartbreakingly beautiful, especially after listening to a couple of the love songs before it. And it's different from the other songs about heartbreak in a way. It's has kind of this somber feeling of like remorseful loss in a way, but also the love. So I'm just curious if you could talk a bit more about that track.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a really perfect way to describe it because that's how I was feeling when I wrote the title track, Fall from Grace. Um, because, like I said, I was feeling all of those deep feelings of love and what I thought was real love. Um, but at the same time, there were aspects of it where I still was, in a way, overshadowed by a type of sadness, not necessarily related to the other stuff I was talking about in the first half, um, but just like a different kind of sadness in general. So it was really interesting to write that song because it kind of combines both themes of the album in that way, the heartbreak and the love in that song, which is why I really love that song. And I think it stands out, like you said, from the other love songs because it has that contrast in it. Um, and it's funny you brought that up because I'd never really thought about it that way, but it makes so much sense. Um, because I'm talking about literally losing everything to have that love. And that's in itself pretty dark if you think about it. But at the same time, it's saying, I want that love so bad, and there's something really special about that love, and that, you know, it would just fulfill me. So that's the light side of it. So I think yeah, it can be confusing, and that's how it feels sometimes. Like, I think that's one of the things I was feeling when I wrote this album is confused because you feel all of these different things all of the time, and it's like sometimes I feel like I can't keep up. So it makes a lot of sense after you said that, thinking about it now, because I think that song is a perfect representation of those conflicting feelings, um, and how they're intertwined more than we really realize.
Yeah, and like that's, sometimes you get all those different kinds of emotions, and that's how it is. And it definitely comes across in that song, in the sense that it's like about heartbreak in a way, but it's so different from the songs at the beginning of the album because it has that extra layer of love in it, and that feeling of, you would sacrifice everything for that love. And that's just like a beautiful message.
Thank you.
Um, I think the message in the last song, Through It All, is also a very beautiful and powerful one. It speaks to that desire within all of us to live a happy and fulfilling life, one that's filled with love, and where, like you said in it, we love through it all. So this is perhaps one of the most vulnerable songs on the album, where your truth really shines through. So can you tell me a bit more about that song?
Yeah. Um, so I knew while I was writing the album that I wanted to end it in a way that just wrapped everything together that I was trying to say. And even through all of the hardship and the heaviness that I express on the album, I wanted to show people that, even through all of that, I could overcome those challenges and those feelings. Um, and it's been something that I've been wanting to say for a while now. And sometimes it's hard to just put those feelings into words, but I really, really, really wanted to this time. Um, and luckily, I was able to tap into those thoughts and feelings and put them in a way where it really made sense to me. Um, because it's a lot. Like that subject is a lot to bear yourself and your thoughts and feelings publicly like that, and trying to figure out in what way you can say what's on your heart but not expose yourself in a way, as
Mm-hmm.
crazy as that sounds. um which was a really cool challenge actually as a writer. Like I had a lot of fun writing that song. But it just, like a lot of the other songs, it just ultimately felt like this much needed release, but like probably from things that I've just been holding in for a long time, like years and years of my life. And it just felt really, really cathartic to write that song and put it all on the plate and serve it up and say, this is me, this is what I've been going through. But you know what? In the end, I'm gonna come out on top of it all because that's what I want for myself. I really wanted to encourage and inspire other people to do the same for whatever they're going through. Um, so that's how that song was inspired.
I think that song is also definitely one of my favorites, and especially because of what you just said, that it's like the perfect ending song for the album because it does kind of capture everything that you experienced in the album in a way that I think is super relatable. Like I said, we all feel that way of like, we want to live a life full of love. And, we go through the ups and the downs. And that's kind of the beauty of life. And I think you captured that message in that song, which is why I just love it so much.
Thank you.
Last week we talked about the theme of grace in the album, but I also noticed that the ocean was another recurring theme throughout. In the first track, Grace, where it starts with the sound of crashing waves and has the lyrics, I was lost under cold water in the unforgiving sea. You found me in the deep and you brought me up to the light. I broke through the surface and I knew I had been saved.
Mm.
And then the ocean theme also comes up in I'm not always sad, but sometimes I am, and a boy on a lonely island. So I really like the contrast between the ocean theme and the theme of like flying and falling from grace that is brought up in some of your other songs. Can you talk a little more about the ocean theme and how that plays into the album?
Definitely. So I've grown up by the ocean, so it's always been a part of my life in one way or another. Um, and when I was writing these songs and thinking about the imagery and everything, and then when I finally got to this version of the album art, um, I accidentally found this picture that my friend Katie took about 4 years ago when a bunch of friends were visiting at the beach. Um, and it just felt really, really right when I saw the picture. Like it finally clicked. Like this is what the album feels like. Just me standing by myself on the beach. It just felt right. And there's, if you could see, it's a little blurry, but there's a flying seagull over my head. So that's how I got the whole idea of flight and falling, and it just all made sense to me. Um, and you have the contrast too with the colors of the pink sky and then the kind of darkness and the deepness of the ocean behind me. So it clicked for me, and I really wanted to play on that after I came up with the art. I just fell in love with the whole beach aesthetic, um, and it just worked perfectly with the songs in terms of, like I said, the lightness, like the romantic pink skies, and the idea of flight and being so high up, and all of that beautiful imagery, but also the other side of it being grounded and just barefoot and on the raw earth, and just being at a low point and having that sinking feeling of being with the ocean and everything that comes with that, the crashing waves. It's just a raw, extreme force of nature, and it really clicked with what I was trying to say. So I just wanted to play off of that idea as much as I could. So
That's the perfect transition into my questions about your visual content. The ocean theme carries over into the photos in your photo shoot, which were taken by Angelica of Luna AP Photography at Island Beach State Park.
mhm.
And your album cover, like you just mentioned, seems to be the visual representation of the song A Boy on a Lonely Island, which you mentioned and talked about a little in your recent Instagram live video. So tell me a little bit more. Well, I guess you already told me about the album cover, but tell me a little bit more about the photo shoot.
Yeah. So the album cover, like I said, was taken 4 years ago unintentionally. Um, so when I came out with the album art, this was before I had the photo shoot planned. So then once I fell in love with that imagery, the beach, that's when I started to develop the idea for a photo shoot and wanting to create a visual space for the music. Um, so then um, this was at Island Beach State Park as well. So I wanted to go back to that location just to be consistent and cohesive with the whole project. Like this is where it started, and I also just wanted to have it live in this world. So that's how I came up with the idea for the photo shoot to go back there. Um, and Angelica is just so talented, and her mind is amazing because um, similar to how I worked with Ian on the mastering. I never met him really before, but we had a virtual relationship basically, and working as partners online with the music. Um, it was similar with Angelica, but I had actually met her a few times at school, but we had never really collaborated or talked too much. But I knew she was a photographer, and had worked with some of my other friends on music projects with photography. So I reached out to her, and I was so impressed by the work she has already done. Um, and then when I was talking to her and explaining what I had in mind for my photo shoot, she was just so receptive, and she just really, really, really took the time to understand my vision. And it was really cool because she was excited about it too, which made me feel all the much more excited. And she just really helped me be confident about my ideas. And she even gave me more ideas for things we wanted to try. And it was a process putting that together because that was in, I think, the late fall or early winter of this year, so the beginning of this year. And we were originally planning to shoot in March of this year, but then ironically, the pandemic happened, so we had to postpone, and we ended up doing it in May, a day after I turned 24. So it was a lot of fun. It was really special. Um, for so many reasons. It was my first professional photo shoot I've ever done. So I was a bit apprehensive about it just because I've always struggled with body image and confidence. Um, but I was also really excited because I had all of these ideas that meant a lot to me, and I had a message and an image that I was trying to portray with this music. So I was trying to focus on that. Um, and she just made it so easy and comfortable for me to explore this album visually. And I'm just so happy with the work we created together. And during that photo shoot, I also had the idea to record the little video snippets to make for the album announcement, which I believe you put in the transcript portion of our first part of the interview on your blog, which people can see if they want to, that video. So it was just a lot of fun, and she did such an amazing job. And I really hope I can work with her in the future as well.
Yeah, those photos came out really great. I was looking through the booklet and I was like, these are really great photos and they were so cool. And the video came out really good too. That was such an exciting way to announce the album. And it probably worked out that you had to postpone it to May because some of it is you actually in the water. That would have been freezing in March.
Yeah, Angelica and I were actually joking about that while we were planning the photo shoot. And because I definitely knew I wanted to go into the water, especially to represent songs like Grace, where I'm talking about um, being under the surface and being in the cold, dark sea. Um, I just I knew I wanted to do that, and I knew it was gonna be ice cold in March, but I was like, you know what? I'm dedicated. I've already put so much time and energy and sleepless nights and emotional pain into this album. I'm like, it can't be that bad. Like, what's some cold water gonna do to me? So I was definitely ready for it. It would have been miserable. So it did work out better in my favor, but it was still pretty cold in May, but
I'd imagine.
probably not as bad as it would have been in March. But it was a lot of fun, and it just felt really good to basically, in a way, get down and dirty on the beach with the sand and the water and the landscape. Which is why, like, I was in full clothing the whole time. Like, I had these full outfits on, and I was jumping in the ocean and climbing these dunes, and they were almost like little mountains in a way if you look at some of the pictures. So I definitely was was getting into the landscape, if you want to say it that way. Um, but it just felt really right too because the album to me felt very organic and natural and raw like that. So it felt really authentic to me to not hold back and like how I'm putting my feelings out just like they are, raw and unfiltered like that. I wanted to kind of portray that visually too. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It looked like so much fun. You can definitely get that energy from the pictures. And
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say it was really cool. We were probably on the beach for about 2.5 hours, and I feel bad because I had my friend Laura come to help me with my wardrobe because, like I said, I had 4 full outfits. So she was kind enough to come and help me carry things and help me do quick changes while we were moving along the beach. And Angelica's boyfriend Jake also came, who I actually was a roommate with at school, and he's a music major as well, and he also does photography. So it was really special to have him there too to add um, some ideas and just help with the overall process. And I felt a little bad because the specific location I wanted to shoot on was all the way at the end of the beach. And we had to walk a few miles, but it felt like we walked the entire beach. And it was just so crazy. And once we actually got to the spot I wanted to shoot out, because we were shooting the whole time we were walking to the spot. And by the time we got to the spot I wanted to shoot out, um, the one of the state park rangers of the beach drove by, and right when we get to the spot, and he goes, "So it's 8 o'clock and the beach is closed now, so you have to leave."
Oh
And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad because I made them walk this whole way to get
no.
here, and it was tiring and everything, and I felt so bad. And unfortunately, we couldn't shoot in that spot, but it worked out still so well, and I'm really happy with how everything came out, and I'm just so thankful for all of them who helped, and it was so cool, and I would do that again in a heartbeat. It's so much fun.
It's amazing to me how grand this project is for your debut full length album. 17 songs, a digital booklet if you download the album on Bandcamp, and it just all came together in a really spectacular way. You kind of went into this a little bit last week, but what gave you the idea to include that extra element of the digital booklet?
Um, so the booklet was actually the reason I did the photo shoot. Um, because I knew I wanted to have some kind of visual element for this project that I've never done before. I've always just made album artwork for any project I've done, but I really wanted to explore this new avenue. So I had the idea of the booklet first, and I love collecting CDs, and I always loved how they come with a booklet with pictures usually that just enhance the story of the album and what the music is about. Um, so that's why I wanted to do the photo shoot. Um, and it was just a really cool experience, and it felt so right to have those pictures alongside the lyrics because it was just another layer of, what I was feeling and inside and the whole creation process. Like it just felt really right to put that out there. I just think it's fun to have something to look at while you're listening to the music and just have that deeper insight.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's the reason that I love collecting vinyl is for the same reason of like the cover, the sleeve, and then sometimes they come with like the little lyric booklets too. And I love the imagery throughout your booklet. The photos that accompany each song all relate to their respective songs so well visually. Was that like planned ahead of time, or did it just like work out that way, or was that just you and Angelica, having the same vision for the project?
That's a good question. It was kind of a combination of both, actually. Um, Once I had the idea to do a photo shoot, I started to collect random pictures from online that I would see of, the beach landscape and also pictures of people, um, just modeling, and the general idea and inspiration um, that I was getting in my head that I wanted to see, in images that already existed, and kind of see what ideas I could get from that, but, put my own art into it. So I had definitely been thinking about it and collecting certain pictures, almost like making a board, a mood board, of what I wanted to do. And then that also evolved while talking to Angelica. So we definitely had some shots in mind. And then once we were actually shooting on the location, um, we were also just experimenting with the landscape that was there. So we definitely had ideas that we had planned and thought about, but then we also um, used what we had in that moment, because I hadn't really been to that spot before, maybe like one time. And I really didn't expect to go in certain areas that we actually did. So a lot of it was in the moment, and it was so, so, so special and fun to just, again, let it be organic and let it happen itself. And it all made sense with everything that was already created and in the process of being created. And it felt really cool, and like everything was really finally coming together. And I was just so excited to build that booklet and see everything come to fruition that I had been thinking of and planning for so long. So it was just such an amazing experience.
That must have felt so rewarding at the end to see it all come together the way that it did.
Yeah.
I know you just released this album and are probably looking forward to a period of rest after all the work of the past year. But I have to ask, what's next? I hear you have an upcoming radio interview on Magic 98.3.
I do. So that's like really exciting. I was lucky enough to work with someone who was in and out of radio for a while. Um, and she recently went back into the industry at the end of 2019, my friend Lauren. And we had mentioned it, she had mentioned it before, that once the album came out, um, she wanted to try to have me featured. They have a segment called On the Verge, which features upcoming musicians and artists. And she had mentioned that and wanted to see if maybe once the album was out, we could do a feature on it, which was really special to me that she thought of me. And then once it finally came out last weekend, she was actually able to get me an interview and feature on The Verge, which is so, 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 so cool and special to me. And I'm really thankful for her to have that opportunity. Um, and it's just another instance of what I was taught in school, even that networking is so key and important, especially if, I mean, in any industry, but especially like the music and art business, networking is so important. And it just shows like connections are so helpful. And I'm so thankful for her to have her as a friend and to have that connection as well. And just the opportunity to be able to talk about my album um, on a larger platform that I don't normally have access to, like the radio. So I'm so excited for that. Um, and in terms of your original question about resting and what's next, um, I'm definitely exhausted, to say the least, from recording Fall from Grace. Um, but even ironically, even when I finished writing the album and I was still recording it, sometimes I would still sit at the piano and start writing new things. And I'm like, I need to stop and focus on what I'm doing now, like this album, because it's very typical of me to have like 50 open tabs in my brain, just like all the time. Like I've like I've talked to other people about this too, like especially people who love to create art. Um, I think it's because you you're always just in a state of a creative mind, and you see things and you hear things, and you're constantly taking things in and being inspired. And I think that's why it's so hard sometimes to focus on one thing without starting something else too. Um, and also, once I finish a project like this and it's out and I'm enjoying seeing people's reactions and everything. That also excites me so much, and it makes me want to keep writing more and putting more out. Some people joked about that last year because after I put out Perfect Stranger, I put out a few other projects, and people were like, "Whoa, I'm getting whiplash right now." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry," but like, it just gets me so excited to just keep putting stuff out, and it also feels good because it's almost like creative exercise for me to just always try to keep putting stuff out and writing and stay active. And it feels really good to be in that spot now. Um, but I also try to let myself take a little bit of a break too, just so I don't overwork myself or um, force any kind of song out that's not like fully inspired, which we've talked about a little bit. Um, so I can say I have started writing stuff for possible future projects. Um, but it definitely feels good to not sit at my laptop for 10 hours, sometimes a day, recording something. So I definitely am resting right now, but doing writing whenever it feels right to me, and not really trying to put a time frame on anything, and just letting it come out when it needs to come out, because that's what I did for Fall from Grace, and it's definitely worked out the best it has for me in that case. So I want to continue working like that.
That's great. Yeah, it's amazing that you are constantly inspired by things, and that just seem to be the nature of art. Like you finish one thing and you're just constantly inspired and always working on what's new, but it's good to also rest. So it's good that you're getting that in
Definitely.
there too. And that is so exciting about that upcoming interview. I can't wait to listen in and hear it. That's just an amazing opportunity, and I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for that. And I'm really happy that we got to do these interviews first, because it's so special to me to talk to you about all of this. And I'm really looking forward to people hearing more about the album, and it'll be cool too to have that radio interview and reach a different kind of audience, maybe locally, and for whoever listens, and just see where that takes the album. So I'm just so excited.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So that's it for my questions. So thank you, Drew, for joining me for this two-part interview installment. It's been so much fun to learn about Fall from Grace and to hear the story behind the album.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this with me, and I guess people will have to stay tuned for whatever comes next.
Yeah, definitely. So you can listen to Fall from Grace everywhere now, including Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, and Bandcamp. You can also find Drew on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So thank you again, Drew. I'm going to go listen to the album a little more after this call.
Thanks so much.
I'm so excited to see what comes next.